Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku walked the path of legends. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The sea breeze at Dagoba Municipal Beach Park had never smelled sweet. For years, it had been a concoction of rotting kelp, rusted iron, and wet cardboard. But today, as the sun began to crest over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of bruised purple and bleeding gold, the air smelled like triumph. Izuku Midoriya stood atop the mountain of garbage he had moved, his chest heaving like a bellows. Steam rose from his skin, mingling with the cool morning mist. He was shirtless, his body a map of scrapes and bruises, muscles taut and trembling from 10 months of hell. He had done it. He had cleared the horizon. Below him, Toshinori Yagi, All Might, stood in his deflated, skeletal form. The hero's deep-set eyes, usually shadowed by worry, were wide with a brilliant, undeniable pride. Oh my goodness! All Might shouted, transforming in a puff of smoke into his buff form, his laughter booming across the empty beach. You did it! You really did it, Midoriya my boy. You finished at the very last second. Izuku stumbled down the pile, his legs feeling like jelly. He fell onto the sand, gasping, grinning so hard his face hurt. I did it, All Might. I'm ready. All Might knelt, offering a hand to pull the boy up. Yes. You have exceeded my expectations. You have built a vessel capable of holding the power. Now, there is no time to waste. The UA entrance exam begins in 3 hours. All Might plucked a single strand of golden hair from his head. He held it out, the morning sun catching it like a filament of pure energy. Eat this. Izuku blinked. The gravity of the moment clashed violently with the absurdity of the request. Huh! It doesn't matter what it is, as long as you ingest my DNA, All Might explained, though he looked slightly embarrassed. Come on, hurry! We don't have time for hesitation. Izuku looked at the hair. This was it. The start of his dream. He didn't hesitate. He took the strand, squeezed his eyes shut, and swallowed it dry. It scratched his throat on the way down, a tiny, physical anchor to reality. Delicious, Izuku choked out, trying to be brave. All Might laughed, slapping him on the back. That's the spirit. Now, the power won't manifest immediately. It usually takes a few hours to digest and settle into the system. You should feel a warmth in your stomach, maybe a bit of. All Might stopped. Izuku wasn't listening. He had frozen. A sound, like the cracking of a glacier, echoed from inside Izuku's chest. Midoriya? All Might leaned in. Izuku's eyes were wide, the pupils dilated to pinpricks. He clutched his stomach, his knuckles turning white. All Might? It wasn't warmth. It was fire. It wasn't a spark. It was a supernova. It's too loud, Izuku whispered, blood trickling from his nose. Loud? What's loud? All Might reached out, concern etching his features. Young Midoriya, breathe. They're screaming. Izuku shrieked. A shockwave of green lightning erupted from Izuku's body, not the controlled flickering sparks All Might was used to seeing in successors, but a violent, jagged discharge that shattered the glass of a nearby truck window. The sand around Izuku's feet turned to glass instantly. Midoriya! All Might grabbed the boy's shoulders, ignoring the stinging electricity that burned his hands. Izuku arched his back, a guttural, inhuman scream tearing from his throat. His veins bulged, glowing a radiant, toxic red beneath his skin. It looked less like he had inherited a power and more like he had swallowed a live grenade that refused to detonate, expanding infinitely inside a container too small to hold it. The vessel isn't ready, All Might thought, panic seizing his heart. But he cleared the beach. His body is prepared. Why? Make it stop! Izuku cried, tears of blood leaking from his eyes. It's too much. It's too full. Then, the world tilted. Izuku fell forward, his consciousness severed from reality before he even hit the sand. All Might caught him, the boy's body radiating a heat so intense it began to singe All Might's shirt. The symbol of peace looked down at his successor, his own heart hammering a frantic rhythm against his ribs. Izuku! Izuku! There was no answer. Only the smell of ozone, and the terrifying silence of a boy whose dream might have just killed him. The void. There was no floor. There was no sky. There was only a storm. Izuku was floating in a dark, oppressive tempest. Clouds of black smoke swirled around him, thick and suffocating. Lightning, red, yellow, green, black, arced through the gloom, striking unseen surfaces with the sound of thunder that rattled his very soul. He couldn't move. He couldn't speak. He felt tiny. Where am I? Did I die? He is too small. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. It was deep, commanding, and laced with a metallic edge. I told you, eighth. The transition would be violent. The singularity has advanced too far. Izuku struggled to turn his head. Through the swirling smoke, figures began to emerge. They were towering, indistinct silhouettes glowing with ethereal light. They stood in a circle around him, like judges at a tribunal. One figure stepped forward. He was thin, frail-looking, with white hair that defied gravity. He looked sad. Hello, ninth, the frail man said. His voice was kinder than the storm. Who? Izuku tried to speak, but his voice was merely an echo. Who are you? I am Yoichi, the man said. The first. Izuku's mind reeled. The first? The first one for all user? Why am I here? Izuku asked. Am I dead? Not yet, a second figure barked. This one was terrifying. He wore a high-collared jacket and gauntlets, his face obscured by shadow and scarring. He radiated an intensity that made Izuku want to curl into a ball. This was the second user. But you are close. Your body is rejecting the core. Rejecting? Izuku panicked. But I trained. I cleaned the beach. All Might said I was ready. Toshinori Yagi judged you by the standards of his own time, the second user said coldly. When he received this power 40 years ago, it was a heavy stone. Now? It is a collapsing star. Every time this power is passed, it grows. It stockpiles. It evolves. You are not just inheriting strength, boy. You are inheriting the consciousness, the quirks, and the sheer kinetic density of 8 lifetimes. Yoichi placed a hand on the second's arm to silence him. He floated closer to Izuku. Imagine pouring an ocean into a cup, Izuku. No matter how strong the cup is, it cannot hold the ocean. It will shatter. So, I failed? Izuku's spirit crumbled. Even here, in the void, he felt the tears coming. I can't be a hero? You have not failed, Yoichi said gently. But the path you plan to walk, the path of a student, sitting in a classroom, learning slowly over 3 years, that path is closed to you. If you keep this power contained within the safety of a high school life, the pressure will build until it kills you. The smoke swirled violently. Another figure, bald and wearing goggles, the fifth user, Daigoro Banjo, stepped out. Listen, kid. The power is awake. All of it. Not just the super strength. The other quirks are scratching at the door. You cracked the seal. To survive, the second user interrupted, you must burn the fuel faster than it generates. You cannot sit idle. You cannot play school. You must fight. You must expend this energy in high-stakes environments to force your body to adapt rapidly. What are you saying? Izuku asked, the fear settling into a cold resolve. We are saying, Yoichi whispered, that you cannot stay in Muzurifu. You must go to the places where we lived. Where we fought. The ley lines of our history. You must synchronize with our echoes to stabilize the core. The boy must walk the path, the second user declared. The storm roared louder. The lightning intensified, blinding Izuku. Wake up, ninth. And tell the eighth. The classroom is a coffin. Muzurifu General Hospital 3 days later. The steady beep, beep, beep of the heart monitor was the only thing keeping Inko Midoriya sane. She sat in the uncomfortable plastic chair, clutching her son's limp hand. Izuku looked pale, seemingly smaller than he had been a few days ago. Veins of faint, glowing red tracery still pulsed visibly beneath the skin of his arms, fading in and out like a dying neon sign. In the corner of the room, Toshinori Yagi stood looking out the window. He wasn't All Might right now. He was just a tired, broken man in an oversized yellow suit. He hadn't left the room in 72 hours. He hadn't slept. He missed it, Inko whispered, breaking the silence. Her voice was hoarse. Tashinori flinched. I know. The acceptance letters went out today. Katsuki-kun got in. Izuku. Izuku didn't even get to take the test. She looked up at Tashinori, her eyes swollen. You said you would train him. You said you would take care of him, Mrs. Midoriya. Tashinori turned, his face a mask of anguish. I miscalculated. I am so profoundly sorry. I thought he was ready. What is wrong with him? Inko demanded, her motherly sorrow turning into protective fury. The doctors don't know. Recovery girl said his body is fighting itself. What did you do to my son? Before Tashinori could answer, before he could even begin to formulate a lie or a confession, Izuku gasped. It wasn't a waking breath. It was a desperate intake of air, like a diver breaking the surface. Izuku sat bolt upright, his eyes snapping open. Green lightning crackled around his head, shattering the vase of flowers on the bedside table. Izuku! Inko shrieked, jumping back. Young Midoriya! Tashinori rushed forward. Izuku looked around frantically, his eyes darting between his mother and his mentor. He was panting, sweat drenching his hospital gown. He grabbed his chest. The screaming in his head had stopped, replaced by a dull, throbbing ache. The exam. Izuku croaked. The exam. It's over, my boy, Tashinori said softly, placing a hand on Izuku's shoulder to steady him. It's been 3 days. Izuku slumped. The energy left him instantly. He looked at his hands, scarred from moving trash, now trembling with a power he couldn't control. I missed it. It doesn't matter right now, Inko cried, rushing to hug him. You're alive. You're awake. Oh, Izuku, I was so scared. Izuku hugged his mother back, burying his face in her shoulder. But over her shoulder, his eyes locked with All Might's. The look in Izuku's eyes wasn't the starry-eyed adoration Tashinori was used to. It was haunted. It was ancient. All Might, Izuku whispered. I saw them. Tashinori froze. The room seemed to drop in temperature. Saw who? The others, Izuku said. The first. The second. All of them. Tashinori took a step back. You saw the vestiges? Already? That shouldn't be possible. I didn't see them until they talked to me, Izuku continued, pulling away from his confused mother. They told me why this happened. The singularity. The cup and the ocean. Tashinori's face went pale. He knew the theory. Dr. Garaki's insane theory that quirks would eventually become too powerful for humans to control. He had dismissed it, but if the predecessors were confirming it, what did they say, Izuku? Tashinori asked, his voice grave. They said. Izuku swallowed hard, the words tasting like ash. They said I can't go to UA. Inko blinked, confusion washing over her. What? Izuku, honey, you're confused. Of course, you missed the exam, but maybe next year, or general studies. No, Mom, Izuku said, his voice trembling but firm. They said the classroom is a coffin. If I stay still, if I try to live a normal life and learn slowly, the power will kill me. It's overflowing. I have to burn it. I have to use it. He looked at All Might. They said I have to walk the path. The ley lines. I have to go to where they came from. Tashinori stared at the boy. He processed the words. The logic was terrifying, but it fit. The instant rejection, the overflow of power. Izuku was a dam trying to hold back a tsunami. If the dam sat still, the pressure would crack it. The only way to save the dam was to open the floodgates. A pilgrimage, Tashinori murmured. Training through survival. Not simulated battles, but real ones. All Might? Izuku asked. What do I do? Tashinori looked at Inko, then at Izuku. He closed his eyes. He thought of the smile of his master, Nana Shimura. He thought of his promise to keep this boy safe, and he realized, with a heavy heart, that safety was no longer an option. There was only survival. Mrs. Midoriya, Tashinori said, his voice dropping an octave, becoming serious and devoid of his usual performative flair. I need you to listen to me very carefully. Izuku is in grave danger, Inko gasped. What? The power he has, it is too great for a normal life. If he returns to middle school, or even attends a normal high school, his body will break down. He needs to master this power, and he needs to do it now. So what are you saying? Inko stood up, trembling. You want to take him away? I have to, All Might said. He knelt on the hospital floor, bowing his head to Inko. I cannot teach him at UA. The pace is too slow. The restrictions are too tight. I will take a leave of absence. I will retire from teaching before I even begin. I will dedicate every second of my remaining time to him. He looked up, blue eyes burning with determination. I will take him on a journey. We will travel the country. I will protect him with my life, and I will teach him how to control this burden. But we have to leave. And we have to leave now. No! Inko shouted. He's 15. He's a baby. You can't just take him on some crusade, Mom, Izuku said. Inko turned to him. Izuku swung his legs out of the bed. He stood up, his legs shaking. Green sparks danced across his skin, singeing the hospital gown. Mom, look at me. He clenched his fist. The air pressure in the room shifted. I can feel it. It's crawling under my skin. It wants to get out. If I stay here, if I go home and sit in my room, I'll explode. I can feel it. Tears streamed down his face. I don't want to leave you. I don't want to go. I wanted to go to UA. I wanted to eat lunch in the cafeteria and wear the uniform and be normal. But I can't. He looked at his hand. I'm not normal anymore. Please, Mom. Let me go. Let me live. Inko looked at her son. She saw the scars on his arms from the beach cleanup. She saw the determination in his eyes. The same determination he had when he was 4, watching that video of All Might over and over again. I am here. She realized then that her baby was gone. He had died the moment he swallowed that hair. The boy standing before her was something else. Something legendary. She sobbed, collapsing into the chair. You have to promise me, she wept, pointing a finger at All Might. You bring him back. You bring him back alive. Or I will kill you myself. All Might bowed his head lower. I swear it on my life, and on the memory of my master. I will return him to you a hero. The departure, leaving was surprisingly quiet. There was no fanfare. No news cruise. Just a discreet discharge form signed by Toshinori Yagi and a hurried packing session at the Midoriya apartment. Izuku packed light. His yellow backpack. A few changes of clothes. His notebooks, all 13 volumes of hero analysis for the future, plus a fresh, blank volume 14. He stood in his room one last time. The walls were plastered with All Might posters. Action figures lined the shelves. It was a shrine to a dream he had chased for 10 years. Now that he had caught the dream, he couldn't stay in the shrine. He picked up the green tracksuit his mother had bought him for training. It was simple, sturdy. He put it on. It felt right. Izuku? He turned. Inko stood in the doorway. She held something in her hands. It was a bundle of heavy fabric. I was making this, she said, her voice wavering. For when you got into UA. I wanted it to be a surprise. She handed it to him. Izuku unfolded the cloth. It was a jumpsuit. Dark green, durable material. It had a hood with long ears, and a respirator mask that looked like a smile. It's not finished, Inko apologized. I didn't add the knee pads or the gloves. But, it's fire-resistant. Izuku ran his fingers over the rough fabric. It was imperfect. It was homemade. It was the best thing he had ever seen. I'll wear it, Izuku said, hugging the suit to his chest. I'll wear it until it falls apart. Just call me, Inko whispered, hugging him one last time. Every day. If you don't call, I'm calling the police on All Might. I promise, Mom. Downstairs, a black van was waiting. It wasn't an All Might-themed vehicle. It was a nondescript, slightly rusted camper van that All Might had purchased cash in hand an hour ago. Toshinori was in the driver's seat, wearing civilian clothes, a baggy t-shirt and cargo pants. He looked less like the number 1 hero and more like a tired uncle. Izuku tossed his bag into the back. The interior was cramped. A small mattress, a cooler, a box of medical supplies, and a stack of maps. Are you ready, young Midoriya? All Might asked, looking in the rearview mirror. Izuku slid into the passenger seat. He looked out the window at his apartment complex. He thought about Yue Hai. He thought about Ochako Uraraka, the nice girl he met at the entrance gate before he passed out. He thought about Ida. He thought about Kaken. Kaken. He pulled out his phone. He typed a message. To Kaken, don't wait for me at Yue. I'm taking a different path. I'm going to catch up to you, I promise. Don't you dare lose to anyone until I get there. He hit send, then turned off the phone. I'm ready, Izuku said. Where to first? All Might asked, starting the engine. The engine sputtered, then roared to life. Izuku pulled out the blank notebook. He opened it to the first page. He didn't write hero analysis. He wrote, The Path of Legends. The vestiges showed me a map, Izuku said, his eyes glowing faintly with green energy. The second user. He said we have to go north. To the mountains of Niigata. Niigata? All Might frowned as he pulled away from the curb. That's rough terrain. Old resistance territory from the chaotic era. There's something there, Izuku said, staring at the road ahead as the city lights of Mizurufu began to fade. An echo. A trial. Then north we go, All Might said. He glanced at his student. You know, this technically counts as truancy. Izuku managed a weak smile. I think we're a bit past that, All Might. Indeed. The van rolled onto the highway, merging with the traffic of ordinary people living ordinary lives. But inside the van, 2 generations of legends sat in silence, driving into the darkness. Izuku looked at his hand. He clenched it. He could feel one for all humming in his bones, a sleeping dragon waiting to wake up. It hurt. It was scary, but for the first time since the beach, he didn't feel like he was drowning. He felt like he was hunting. All Might? Yes, my boy? Why did the second user call you 8th and not your name? All Might sighed, his grip tightening on the steering wheel. Because to them, we are not people, Izuku. We are carriers. We are links in a chain. And a chain is only useful if it holds. Izuku looked out the window at the moon. I won't break. I know, All Might whispered. As they drove, a news report played softly on the radio. Breaking news. The UA entrance exam results are being tabulated, but sources say this year's batch of applicants is exceptionally promising. In other news, sightings of a large, unknown creature have been reported in the northern mountains of Niigata. Izuku's eyes narrowed. The green lightning sparked around his fingers, arcing between them like a Tesla coil. We're going to be busy, Izuku said. The van sped up, leaving the city, and Izuku Midoriya's childhood, behind in the dust. The path had begun. The heater in the van was broken. That was the first reality check of Izuku Midoriya's new life. It wasn't the heroic nomadic existence of wandering samurai he had read about in manga. It was cold. It was cramped, and it smelled like instant noodles and damp socks. They were 3 days north of Mizurufu, deep in the mountainous spine of the Niigata prefecture. The landscape here was hostile, jagged peaks capped with eternal snow, dense forests of cedar and pine that blocked out the weak afternoon sun, and roads that hadn't seen a paving crew since the dawn of the Quirk era. Izuku sat in the passenger seat, his breath misting in the air. He was shirtless, his upper body covered in small, shivering tremors. Not from the cold, though it was freezing, but from the effort of holding the energy in. Breathe, young Midoriya. In through the nose, cycle it through the diaphragm, out through the mouth. All Might, currently in his skeletal form, looking like a scarecrow wrapped in 3 layers of blankets, drove with a focused intensity. He glanced at his student with worry. Izuku closed his eyes. One for All was a raging river. In the past few days he had managed to turn the valve from exploding dam to leaking pipe, but it was exhausting. He had to maintain a constant state of 1% coverage just to keep the core from overheating and causing those terrifying blackouts. I can feel it, Izuku whispered, his teeth chattering. It hates sitting still. It's an accumulation of power, All Might said, steering the van around a pothole the size of a crater. But more than that, it is an accumulation of will. The previous users, they were men and women of action. They didn't rest. The power remembers that. Izuku looked down at his hands. Faint red lines traced his veins, pulsing like a heartbeat. The second user, he's the loudest right now. He's angry. The second, All Might mused. History books are vague on that era. It was the Dark Age. Warlords. Gangs. All for one rising to power. The second was a leader of a resistance cell against him. He wasn't a hero, Izuku. Not in the modern sense. He was a soldier. Izuku nodded. He felt that soldier's ghost pressing against the back of his skull. It was a sharp, militaristic pressure. Move. Engage. Destroy. We're almost there, All Might said, nodding toward a jagged silhouette in the distance. A mountain that looked like it had been sliced in half by a giant blade. Mount Myoko, or the locals call the specific ridge we're heading to the guillotine. Why are we here? Izuku asked, pulling his green tracksuit jacket on to cover his shivering frame. Because the second user's will is pulling us here, All Might said grimly. And because I made some calls. There is a reason this area is a restricted zone, the ghost town. They parked the van in the remains of a logging village at the foot of the mountain. It was a ghost town, abandoned perhaps 10 years ago. Vines choked the rotting wooden structures. A rusted playground swing creaked in the biting wind. Stay close, All Might warned, stepping out. He didn't transform, but his presence was still commanding. This area is designated as a quirk hazard zone. Civilians were evacuated a decade ago. Izuku hopped out, his red boots crunching on the frost-covered ground. He scanned the area. A hazard zone? Like a radiation leak? Like a predator, All Might corrected. They walked into what used to be the town square. In the center stood a statue, half-crumbled, depicting a bear. But the statue was wrong. The bear had too many limbs. The second user operated in this region, All Might explained, his voice echoing in the silence. He used the terrain to ambush All for One's supply convoys. It is a place of ambush. Of guerrilla warfare. Guerrilla warfare. Izuku rolled the words around in his head. He was a student. He studied math and English. He didn't know how to wage war. Crack. The sound was sharp, like a gunshot. Izuku spun around, green lightning flaring instantly around his legs. Who's there? From the shadows of a dilapidated general store, an old woman emerged. She was tiny, hunched over a cane made of twisted driftwood. She didn't look surprised to see them. She looked resigned. Tourists? She rasped. Her voice sounded like dry leaves. Or are you here to feed him? All Might stepped forward, shielding Izuku slightly. We are travelers. We thought this town was abandoned. It is, the woman said. I am the only one left. Someone has to ring the bell. She pointed a knobby finger toward a rusted fire bell tower near the town hall. To warn the valley when he wakes up. Who? Izuku asked. The woman's eyes, milky with cataracts, locked onto Izuku. She didn't see him. She saw the energy humming around him. She recoiled. You smell like lightning, she whispered. Just like the thunder god from the stories. Ma'am, All Might pressed gently. What is in the mountains? The Titan, she said. The Titan of the cliff. 10 years ago, a villain transport crashed up there. Carrying chemicals. Trigger. Muscle enhancers. Experimental mutagens. A bear ate the cargo. Izuku felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. A bear? It didn't die, she continued. It grew. It learned. It ate the wolves. Then the deer. Then the logging crew. The heroes came, and they left in body bags, so the government just put up a fence and forgot about us. She pointed up at the guillotine ridge. He owns the mountain now. And he is hungry. As if on cue, a roar echoed from the peaks. It wasn't a natural sound. It was a distorted, mechanical shriek that vibrated in Izuku's chest. The frequency caused the windows of the van to rattle. Inside Izuku's mind, the second user didn't scream. He laughed. Target acquired, the voice in his head seemed to say. All Might, Izuku said, clutching his chest. That's it. That's the anomaly. The second, he wants me to fight it. All Might looked up at the mountain. The sun was setting, casting the peaks in blood-red light. A mutant beast fueled by trigger and isolation. A creature that defeated pros. He looked at Izuku. The boy was 15. He was trembling. But his eyes were hard. We set up camp, All Might decided. We scout tonight. We engage tomorrow. The campfire strategy meeting. Night fell heavy and dark. They set up a small fire inside the shell of an old warehouse to hide the light. Izuku sat cross-legged, his notebook open. The firelight danced on the pages of Path of Legends, Entry 1. Analysis, All Might prompted. He was cooking canned soup over a portable stove. Izuku clicked his pen, tapping it against his chin. Based on the lady's description and the roar, it's huge. At least 4 meters tall. If it ate trigger and experimental mutagens, its muscle density is likely off the charts. It's a protonoma, basically. A biological tank. Weaknesses? Animals have instincts, Izuku muttered. Territoriality. Hunger. But if it has a quirk, everything has a weakness, Midoriya. Even me. All Might handed him a bowl of soup. The second user's quirk was gearshift. Do you know what that does? It alters the speed of things he touches, Izuku recited. It ignores inertia. He could shoot a bullet from a slingshot and make it hit like a cannon, correct. But he couldn't use it on his own body back then. It was too much strain. He used it on projectiles. He was a sniper. A trapper. All Might sat down heavily. But One for All has evolved the quirk. If you unlock it, it will apply to you. It will let you shift your own speed instantly. Izuku stared at his hand. I can't even use 10% of the base power without breaking my bones. If I try to use a meta ability like that, you will explode, All Might said bluntly. So don't use the quirk. Use the lesson. The lesson? The second didn't beat All for One's minions with power. He beat them with tempo. Fast then slow. Loud then quiet. He disrupted their rhythm. All Might leaned forward. Tomorrow, you cannot overpower this bear. If you try to punch it out, you will lose. You have to be the second. You have to be a gorilla. Izuku nodded slowly. Disrupt the rhythm. He looked at his notebook. He began to draw the topography of the mountain. The cliff. The loose rocks. The trees. I have a plan, Izuku said. The ascent. The climb began at dawn. The air was thin, making Izuku's lungs burn. He wore his homemade hero suit, the green jumpsuit his mother had sewn. It felt snug, comforting. He had added his red sneakers and the metal respirator mask. All Might followed 100 yards behind. He had made it clear, I am here to carry your body back if you fall. I am not here to fight. The forest was silent. Too silent. There were no birds. No insects. The apex predator had silenced the ecosystem. Izuku moved using full cowl. He kept it at 5%. Green sparks flickered around him, illuminating the gloom under the trees. He jumped from branch to branch, trying to keep his footprints off the snow. Danger sense, the fourth user's quirk, was not fully awake yet, but Izuku felt a prickly sensation at the base of his neck. A warning, right. Izuku kicked off a tree trunk, launching himself to the left just as the world exploded. A mass of black fur and muscle the size of a minivan smashed through the trees where Izuku had been a fraction of a second ago. The impact snapped century-old pines like toothpicks. Izuku rolled in the air, landing in a crouch on a rocky outcrop. He looked up, and his blood ran cold. The Titan. It was a bear, yes. But it was grotesque. Its muscles were so overdeveloped the skin had split in places, revealing raw red tissue that steamed in the cold air. Its eyes were glowing purple, the color of trigger. But the most terrifying part was the distortion around it. The air shimmered. It's vibrating, Izuku whispered. The bear roared, and the sound wave hit Izuku like a physical punch, knocking him backward. It has a vibration quirk? Or acceleration? The bear charged. It didn't run, it blurred. 1 second it was 50 meters away, the next it was in front of Izuku, a claw the size of a scythe sweeping toward his head. Too fast. Izuku engaged 8%, his absolute limit. He ducked, the claw shearing off the top of his cowl's ear. He punched the bear in the stomach. Detroit smash. It felt like punching a wall of rubber. The impact absorbed instantly. The bear didn't even flinch. The beast backhanded him. Izuku flew. He crashed through a tree, then another, finally slamming into a boulder. His vision swam. His ribs screamed in protest. Midoriya! All Might's voice echoed from far away. Izuku wheezed, coughing up blood inside his mask. He tried to stand, but his legs were shaking. It's too strong. It's too fast. 5% isn't enough. I need 100%. He clenched his fist. The red lines on his arm flared bright. If I use 100%, I break my arm. But if I don't, I die. No. The voice slammed into his mind like a hammer. The world turned gray. Time seemed to slow. Izuku was back in the void. The storm was raging. The second user stood before him, arms crossed. You are thinking like a hammer, ninth. You see a nail, you want to smash it. It's too fast. Izuku screamed at the phantom. I can't keep up. It is moving at a constant velocity, the second barked. It relies on momentum. You are trying to match its momentum. You cannot. You are small. It is large. The second stepped closer, his face inches from Izuku's. Don't be a hammer. Be a gear. When a large gear spins a small gear, what happens? Izuku blinked. The small gear spins faster, correct. You don't stop the force. You redirect it. You change the tempo. Stop trying to overpower it. Use its own speed to kill it. The second grabbed Izuku's wrist. Feel the shift. Reality snapped back. The bear was midair, pouncing toward him, jaws wide open. Izuku didn't wind up a punch. He didn't try to block. He closed his eyes for a microsecond. He felt the hum of One for All. He felt the second user's angry vibration. Gear shift isn't ready, Izuku realized. But I can mimic it. I can mimic the rhythm. He took a deep breath. 0. Izuku turned off full cowl. The sudden lack of light and sound confused the beast. Its predatory instinct expected resistance. It hesitated for a fraction of a second, adjusting its trajectory. Max. Izuku flared One for All to 20% in his legs only. The pain was blinding, his bones creaking under the strain. He didn't jump away. He jumped under the bear. Manchester. Smash! He didn't hit the bear. He kicked the loose rock beneath the bear's landing point. The ground exploded. The bear landed, but the footing was gone. Its massive momentum carried it forward, stumbling, sliding on the scree. Izuku bounced off a rock, gritting his teeth against the agony in his legs. He was above the bear now. Hey, ugly! Izuku screamed. The bear looked up. Izuku reached into his belt and pulled out 3 flashbang grenades. Surplus police gear All Might had acquired. He pulled the pins with his teeth and dropped them. Bang! 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 The valley turned white. The bear shrieked, blinded and deafened. It thrashed wildly, its claws tearing up the mountainside. Izuku landed on a high ridge, panting. His legs felt like they were on fire. But he was alive. Tempo, Izuku whispered. Disrupt the tempo. The bear was disoriented, spinning in circles, swiping at ghosts. It was enraged. It began to glow brighter purple, the energy around it warping the air. It was charging up a kinetic blast. It's going to bring the mountain down on us. All Might yelled from the tree line. Midoriya, retreat. No! Izuku yelled back. If I run, it goes down to the village. It goes to the cities. Izuku looked at the topography. He looked at where the bear was standing, a shelf of rock known as the guillotine. He looked at the snowpack above them. The cup cannot hold the ocean, Yoichi had said, so let the ocean out. Izuku focused. He gathered every ounce of energy he had. Not 5%. Not 8%. He let the power flood his right arm. The red veins turned to blinding white cracks. The pain was transcendent. It felt like his arm was being dipped in magma. Second user! Izuku screamed internally. Lend me your grip. He felt a phantom hand wrap around his own. Izuku leaped. Not at the bear. But at the cliff face above the bear. The bear sensed him. It looked up, opening its mouth to fire a beam of pure kinetic energy. Izuku twisted in the air. One for all. 20%. He knew he couldn't handle 100%. But 20% concentrated into a single finger flick? He wound up his middle finger. Delaware smash. Snap. The air pressure blast hit the snowpack. It hit the unstable rock shelf. It wasn't a punch. It was a trigger. The mountain groaned. A sound deeper than the bear's roar. Tons of snow, rock, and ice detached from the peak. A white tsunami. The bear looked up, its purple eyes widening. Izuku used the recoil of the blast to launch himself backward, grabbing a sturdy pine tree. The avalanche hit. It slammed into the titan with the force of a god. The bear was buried instantly, swept off the guillotine ridge and carried down into the deep ravine below. The sound was deafening, a continuous roar of destruction that lasted for a full minute. Then silence. Izuku hung from the tree, his right hand purple and broken, his fingers twisted. He was gasping for air, tears streaming down his face from the pain, but the screaming in his head, the vestiges, was gone. Replaced by a low, satisfied hum. The second user was satisfied. Recovery. All Might found him 10 minutes later. Izuku had managed to climb down to a flat rock, cradling his broken hand. Young Midoriya. All Might scrambled over the debris, his face pale. Oh God, your hand? Izuku looked up. He was pale, sweating, and bleeding from a cut on his forehead. But he was smiling. I did it, Izuku whispered. I shifted gears. All Might knelt, quickly applying a splint to the fingers. You used a Delaware smash. You broke your fingers again. Only 2 of them, Izuku corrected weakly. I controlled it better. It wasn't 100%. I choked it down. All Might stopped. He looked at the devastation on the mountainside. He looked at the massive mound of snow and rock in the ravine where the titan lay buried. You used the environment, All Might said softly. You didn't try to be a symbol of peace standing your ground. You were a soldier using the terrain. The second told me, Izuku said, leaning his head back against the rock. Don't be a hammer. Be a gear. All Might finished wrapping the bandage. He sat back, looking at his student. In just a few days the boy had changed. The innocence was fading, replaced by a gritty survival instinct. You are reckless, All Might said, his voice thick with emotion. And you are brilliant. Is it dead? Izuku asked. Buried under 50 tons of rock? If not dead, it is certainly neutralized. I will call the HPSC anonymously to come clean up the mess. They have containment units. All Might picked Izuku up, carrying him piggyback style. We need to get you to a healer. My connections. I know a doctor off the grid. Gran Torino? Izuku mumbled, his eyes drooping. No, All Might said. Not yet. Someone else. Someone who owes me a favor. As they walked back toward the van, the sun began to rise over the broken mountain. Izuku felt a shift inside his core. The chaotic storm of One for All felt orderly. The energy was still massive, still painful, but the channels were wider. He flexed his uninjured hand. Green sparks danced, steady and controlled. All Might, Izuku whispered. Yes? I think I can hold 8% now. Constant. All Might paused. He looked back at the trail of destruction. Start slowly, Izuku. The path is long. Interlude. The shadow and the neon. 300 miles away, in the bustling district of Narahata, a man in a trench coat stood on a rooftop, overlooking the neon sprawl. He wore a mask that covered the lower half of his face. His phone buzzed. Report, a gravelly voice said on the other end. The anomaly in Niigata has been neutralized, the man said. The signature, it was undeniable. It was him. All Might? No, the man said, watching a police car chase a speeding villain down the highway below. The energy signature was raw, unrefined. And it was mixed with something else. Something ancient. So, the torch has been passed, the voice mused. And they are on the move. What are your orders, Sensei? Let them run. Let the boy fatten up the quirk. But keep eyes on them. And send her, the traitor. Lady Nagant. Tell her the target is a villain in the making. A rogue successor. The line went dead. The man on the roof pocketed the phone. He looked down at the street, where a vigilante in a hoodie, the crawler, was sliding across the pavement using a glide quirk. Narahata is going to get noisy, the man muttered, and dissolved into sludge. The van 2 days later. Izuku sat in the back of the van, his hand in a cast. The heater was still broken, but they had bought better sleeping bags. He was reading volume 14. He had drawn a picture of the Titan bear. Underneath, he had written, Trial 2, complete. Lesson, rhythm over power. Status, 8%. Where to next? Izuku asked, looking at the map taped to the ceiling of the van. All Might was driving, looking more rested. The third user. His name was a mystery for a long time, but we know where he operated. The Neon Districts. Naruhata, the city of vigilantes, Izuku said. I read about the crawler and Pop Step on the forums. It's a lawless place in some regards, All Might warned. The police look the other way. Heroes are flexible there. It fits our current status. Outlaws, Izuku said with a smirk. Independent contractors, All Might corrected with a grin. Izuku looked out the window. The mountains were fading, replaced by the encroaching suburbs. He closed his eyes and sank into the vestige world. It was calmer now. The second user wasn't staring him down anymore. He was standing with his back to Izuku, looking out into the void. It wasn't a hug. It wasn't a high five. But it was acceptance. Izuku opened his eyes. Hey, All Might? Yeah? I'm hungry. Can we stop for Katsudon? All Might laughed. You took down a Titan, kid. You can have 2 bowls. The van sped up, heading toward the lights of the city, toward the next trial, and toward the shadow that was already waiting for them. The transition from the silence of the mountains to the cacophony of Naruhata was violent. One moment, their world had been white snow, black rocks, and the howling wind. Now, it was a sensory assault of neon pink, electric blue, and the relentless thrum of a city that refused to sleep. Naruhata wasn't the gleaming, polished metropolis of Tokyo or the suburban sprawl of Muzurifu. It was gritty. It was dense. It was alive. The van, now sporting a new dent on the fender and caked in mountain mud, looked out of place rolling down the bustling avenues. Izuku Midoriya sat in the passenger seat, his nose practically pressed against the glass. He wore a dark gray hoodie over his green jumpsuit, the hood pulled up to obscure his messy hair and the recognizable scars on his face. It's loud, Izuku murmured, watching a group of teenagers with mutant quirks skating down the sidewalk, spraying holographic graffiti into the air. Naruhata has always been unique, All Might said from the driver's seat. He was wearing a bucket hat and a surgical mask, doing his best impression of a sickly old man. Before the licensing laws were strictly enforced, this place was the cradle of the vigilante movement. Even now, the police here operate on a don't ask, don't tell policy for minor quirk usage. It feels different than the rest of Japan, Izuku noted. It feels loose. That looseness is what allowed the third user to survive, All Might explained. The third lived during the height of All for One's consolidation of power. Heroes were being hunted. The only way to fight back was to disappear into the crowd. To become a shadow in the neon. Izuku looked down at his hands. The cast on his right hand had been removed by the underground doctor All Might knew, replaced by a high-tech compression brace that allowed him limited movement. His fingers still ached, a constant reminder of the Titan bear. The third user, Izuku whispered. He doesn't talk much in the vestige world. He was a man of action, not words, All Might said. And his quirk reflects that. It requires preparation. Rhythm. Repetition. They turned a corner, passing under a massive digital billboard advertising Detnerat lifestyle support items. Where are we meeting him? Izuku asked. The Sky Egg, All Might said, pointing toward the massive observation tower dominating the skyline. Or rather, underneath it. The crawler. They parked in a labyrinthine underground parking structure. The air smelled of exhaust and stale grease. We are meeting a contact, All Might said, checking his phone, a burner flip phone they had bought at a convenience store. He's an old friend. Well, friend is a strong word. We crossed paths a few times when he was unregistered. A vigilante? Izuku's eyes widened. A legend, All Might corrected. They walked to the elevator bank, but instead of going up, All Might led Izuku to a service door marked Authorized Personnel Only. He picked the lock with a casual proficiency that shocked Izuku. All Might, where did you learn to pick locks? Being the symbol of peace required entering a lot of locked rooms to save people, my boy. Keys are often unavailable during disasters. They entered a maintenance corridor, the hum of the building's ventilation system vibrating in the walls. At the end of the hall, a figure was waiting. He was leaning against the wall, tossing a glowing energy ball from hand to hand. He wore a sleek, aerodynamic suit that looked like a cross between a racing biker and a classic superhero. He looked older than the photos Izuku had seen on the deep web hero forums, maybe in his late 20s now, but his grin was boyish and infectious. "Tashinori!" the man called out, pushing off the wall. "Man, you look terrible." "No offense. None taken," Himawari-kun, All Might wheezed, bowing slightly. "Thank you for meeting us." Koichi Himawari, the crawler, stepped into the light. He looked at Izuku, his eyes scanning the boy with the sharp, assessing gaze of a veteran. "And this is the little egg?" Koichi asked, winking. "Izuku Midoriya," Izuku stammered, bowing a perfect 90 degrees. I'm a huge fan. The crawler of Narahata. The way you utilized the slide and glide quirk to create three-dimensional mobility was revolutionary. I read the unauthorized biography about the Sky Egg incident, and Koichi laughed, slapping Izuku on the shoulder. "Whoa, breathe, kid. I'm just a guy who likes to slide." "Nice to meet you, Midoriya." Koichi turned to All Might, his expression sobering. "So, the rumors are true. You're running." "We are training," All Might corrected. "The HPSC has eyes everywhere. We needed a place where the surveillance is patchy." "Well, you came to the right place," Koichi said. "Narahata is full of blind spots." "But you didn't just come for the scenery, did you?" "We are hunting," Izuku said, his voice firm. "There's a disturbance here." "An echo." Koichi nodded slowly. "Yeah. I figured. The subways. We've had 3 derailments in the last week. The news says faulty wiring, but I've been down there. It's not wiring. It's something angry." "The third user's trial," Izuku murmured. "Come on," Koichi gestured. "Let's go to my safe house. It's an old cafe my buddy Pop used to run. We can talk strategy there. And get some coffee. You look like you haven't slept in a week." The lesson of the dance. The safe house was a closed-down cafe called Sun Street Coffee. The blinds were drawn, and dust motes danced in the slivers of light cutting through the gloom. Koichi sat on a barstool, spinning effortlessly. "So, tell me about this power. You're trying to unlock a specific aspect of it?" "It's called FA Gene," Izuku explained, opening his notebook to a page filled with diagrams of springs and pistons. "The third user's quirk. It allows me to build up kinetic energy by repeating movements, store it, and then release it all at once for a burst of speed or power." "Like winding up a toy car?" Koichi asked. "Exactly. But I can't get it to work," Izuku admitted, frustrated. In the mountains, with the second user, it was about shifting gears. Mental tempo. But this feels physical. I try to do jumping jacks or squats to build it up, but in a fight, I can't just stop and exercise." Koichi hummed, sliding off the stool and gliding across the floor. He didn't walk, he hovered an inch off the ground, his movement frictionless. "You're thinking about it like a battery," Koichi said, drifting in a circle around Izuku. "You think you have to stop, charge, and then go. That's too slow. In Narahata, if you stop moving you get hit." Koichi suddenly accelerated, bouncing off the walls like a pinball. Zip. 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 He was a blur. "Movement isn't a separate action from fighting, Midoriya," Koichi yelled from the ceiling, pushing off a light fixture. "It is the fight. You have to build the charge while you dodge. While you engage." He landed silently in front of Izuku. "It's a rhythm," Koichi said. "A dance. You have to find the beat of the battle. Every dodge is a squat. Every deflection is a wind-up. Don't separate the charge from the flow." Izuku watched him. He closed his eyes. He pictured the third user. In the void, the third user was doing something strange. He wasn't standing still. He was shadowboxing. Left, right, duck, weave. A constant, hypnotic rhythm. 1, 2, 3, store. 1, 2, 3, release. "A dance," Izuku whispered. "Tonight," Koichi said, checking his watch. "We go underground. The subway phantom, or whatever this thing is, comes out when the trains stop running. It feeds on the residual electricity of the rails. It's fast. If you stand still, you die." The underbelly. The Narahata subway system was a labyrinth of tunnels, maintenance shafts, and abandoned lines dating back a century. At 2 a.m., the power to the third rail was cut for maintenance, leaving the tunnels in a suffocating darkness. Izuku, All Might, and Koichi walked along the tracks. The only light came from the green glow of Izuku's cowl and the gold flashlight beam from All Might. "It's quiet," Izuku whispered. The sound of dripping water echoed like gunshots. "Too quiet," Koichi said. He was sliding along the rails, his hands in his pockets, but his posture was tense. Usually there are rats. Or unauthorized graffiti artists. Tonight, nothing. Suddenly Izuku's danger sense flared. It wasn't a sharp stab like before. It was a vibrating hum at the base of his skull. "Something is here," Izuku hissed. Ahead. Around the curve. "Kill the lights," Koichi ordered. All Might clicked off the flashlight. They were plunged into darkness. Then they saw it. Down the tunnel, a soft, chaotic purple light was flickering. It crackled and popped, sounding like a downed power line. As they crept closer, the form became clear. It was humanoid, but barely. It looked like a man made of static. Jagged bolts of purple energy lashed out from its back like tendrils, similar to Black Whip, but untamed, wild. It was hunched over a junction box, tearing through the metal casing with energy claws to suck the residual current. "A composite quirk," All Might whispered, his voice tight. "Energy absorption and some kind of tendril projection. It's a failed one," Izuku realized. Like the Nomu at USJ, but unstable. The creature stopped feeding. Its head snapped around 180 degrees. It didn't have a face, just a swirling vortex of purple light. It screamed. The sound was digital screeching, like a modem from hell. "Scatter!" Koichi yelled. The creature exploded forward. It didn't run, it zipped through the air as a bolt of lightning. A purple tendril lashed out, smashing the concrete wall where Izuku had just been standing. Izuku rolled, activating full call at 8%. Smash! He threw a punch at the creature's center of mass. His fist passed right through the static body. "What?" The creature solidified instantly around his arm, shocking him with thousands of volts. "Gah!" Izuku cried out, wrenched backward. "Midoriya! Don't touch it directly!" Koichi shouted. He slid past, generating a repulsion field that knocked the creature back. "It's energy! You can't punch energy!" The creature retaliated, sending a spray of energy needles at Koichi. The crawler drifted effortlessly, weaving through the barrage with impossible grace. "You have to disperse it!" All Might yelled from the sidelines. He was holding a specialized capture gun, but he couldn't get a clear shot. "Overload its capacity or disperse its form." Izuku landed on the tracks, breathing hard. The shock had numbed his left arm. "I can't punch it. I can't grab it." The creature turned its attention to Izuku. It sensed the power within him, the stockpile of energy that was one for all. It hungered. It lunged, transforming into a massive whip of violet light. "Dodge, kid! Keep moving!" Koichi yelled. Izuku jumped. Wall. Ceiling. Floor. The whip cracked behind him, vaporizing concrete. "Rhythm," Izuku told himself. "Don't just run. Build." He landed in a crouch. 1. He sprung to the left. 2. He rolled under a slash. 3. In the vestige world, the third user began to move in sync with him. The user's body glowed with a rhythmic red pulse. Store. 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 Izuku felt a different kind of heat in his legs. It wasn't the burning of one for all's overflow. It was a tight, coiled pressure. Like a spring compressed to its limit. "It's faster than me!" Izuku yelled. "Only in a straight line!" Koichi shouted back. He was distracting the creature, sliding in circles around it to create a vortex of air. "Make it turn! Break its ankles!" The creature roared, expanding its size, filling the tunnel with crackling death. It was charging up a massive discharge. "It's going to fry the whole grid," All Might warned. "Izuku, you have to end this now." Izuku looked at the creature. He looked at the walls of the tunnel. "I need speed. Explosive speed. More than 100%. Koichi-san!" Izuku yelled. "Launch me!" Koichi didn't ask questions. He understood the flow. On it, Koichi slid toward Izuku, holding out his hands. Izuku ran toward him. Step. 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 Charge. 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 Izuku's skin began to glow with a reddish hue, overlaying the green lightning. The kinetic energy was screaming to be let out. He jumped. Koichi caught his feet with his hands, using his own slide and glide repulsion to act as a cannon. Shooting star. Launch! Koichi blasted Izuku forward. Izuku combined the launch with his stored FA gene. FA gene. Release! The world blurred. Izuku moved so fast he disappeared. He wasn't a boy anymore. He was a kinetic missile. He broke the sound barrier inside the tunnel. The sonic boom shattered the lights. He didn't punch the creature. He ran through it. The sheer air pressure and velocity of his passage created a vacuum. The creature's energy form was ripped apart, scattered into a million harmless sparks. Izuku slammed into the far wall of the tunnel, sticking the landing with his magnetic saws, though the concrete cracked under the impact. Silence returned to the tunnel. The purple sparks faded. On the ground, a small, charred husk of a Noma lay motionless. It was barely the size of a dog now that its energy was gone. Izuku fell to his knees, gasping. His legs were trembling violently. The red glow faded. Whoa, Koichi whispered, sliding to a stop. That was fast. All Might lowered his capture gun. He walked over to the remains of the creature. It burned out. You dispersed its core. He looked at Izuku. You used FA gene. Izuku looked at his legs. It felt rhythmic. Like a heartbeat. That was a pseudo 100%, All Might analyzed. By stacking the kinetic energy, you mimicked 100% of my power without the backlash of breaking your bones. It's a cheat code. A cheat code, Izuku laughed breathlessly. I like that. The eye of the storm. They emerged from the subway at dawn. The city of Naruhata was waking up. Garbage trucks were humming. Early commuters were rushing to the station. They sat on the roof of the Sun Street Coffee building, watching the sunrise. You've got good instincts, kid, Koichi said, handing Izuku a canned coffee. You move a little stiff, like you're thinking too much about the next step. But when you let go, you fly. I couldn't have done it without you, Izuku said humble. The launching, that was amazing. Teamwork makes the dream work, Koichi grinned. That's the vigilante way. We don't have backup, so we back each other up. All Might stood near the edge, looking down at the street. His expression was serious. What is it? Izuku asked, sensing the mood shift. I checked the news, All Might said. The HPSC has deployed a special task force to the region. They claim they are hunting vigilante elements causing unrest. They're looking for you, Koichi said, losing his smile. Or rather, they're looking for the boy. Why? Izuku asked. I'm fighting villains. I'm doing their job. Because you are uncontrolled, All Might said. And because you possess the only power that scares them. They want to leash you, Izuku. Or cage you. Koichi stood up and zipped his jacket. Well, they won't find you here. I've got friends in the sanitation department who will scrub the camera footage of the subway. As far as anyone knows, it was a gas leak. He extended a hand to Izuku. Keep running, Midoriya. But remember, don't just run away. Run towards something. That's how you keep your rhythm. Izuku shook the hand. Thank you, Koichi-san. The hunter, high above the city, on a water tower 3 blocks away, a scope glinted in the morning sun. The woman holding the rifle had bicolored hair, blue and pink. She chewed a piece of gum. Her eyes narrowed as she peered through the lens. Her right arm was transformed into a grotesque, organic rifle. Target confirmed, Lady Nagant whispered into her comms. The boy. The skeleton. And the crawler. Engage? A voice asked in her ear. Nagant watched Izuku through the scope. She saw him smiling at Koichi. She saw the exhaustion in his posture, but also the light in his eyes. It reminded her of something she had lost a long time ago. Negative, Nagant said, lowering the rifle. Too many witnesses. The crawler is a local hero. Engaging him causes a riot. Besides, she popped a bubble of gum. The boy looks tired. Let him tire himself out a bit more. The hunt is more fun when the prey is desperate. Do not fail us, Nagant. The doctor wants the boy intact. Yeah? I know the drill. She stood up, her rifle arm shifting back into a normal human limb. She looked at the rising sun. Path of legends, huh? She mused. Let's see if you can walk the path of a bullet. The road again. Back in the van, the mood was lighter. Izuku had showered at the safe house and eaten a real meal. He sat in the back, writing furiously in his notebook. Trial 3, complete. Lesson, kinetic buildup/FA gene, mentor, the crawler. Status, can access 45% burst using kinetic storage. We're heading west, All Might said, looking at the map. Into the deep forests of the Shikoku region. The fourth user, Izuku said, touching his forehead. Haikid Shinomori. He was a hermit, All Might said. He spent his entire life hiding from All for One, training in isolation. His quirk is difficult. Danger sense, Izuku said. It's already started. The headaches are getting worse. It will get worse before it gets better, All Might warned. Shinomori died of old age at 40 because the quirk drained his life force. It is a burden on the soul. Izuku looked out the window as the neon lights of Narahata faded into the gray of the highway. I can handle it, Izuku said, but as he said it, a sharp pain stabbed behind his eyes. A warning. Not of a villain, but of the stress fracturing his own mind. The third user faded into the background of his mind, satisfied. But the fourth was waking up. And the fourth was screaming. The van rolled on, carrying the two fugitives toward the silence of the woods, unaware that the bullet was already in the chamber, waiting for the perfect shot. The rain didn't fall in the Shikoku Mountains. It materialized. It was a pervasive, soaking mist that clung to the skin and chilled the bone, turning the world into a grayscale watercolor painting of ancient pines and jagged rock. The van struggled up the muddy incline, its tires spinning on the slick gravel. Inside, the atmosphere was thicker than the fog outside. Izuku Midoriya sat with his knees pulled to his chest, his forehead pressed against the cold glass of the window. He wasn't looking at the scenery. His eyes were squeezed shut, his hands gripping his hair so tightly that his knuckles were white. Buzz. Prickle. Stab. It wasn't a voice. It wasn't a sound. It was a sensation, like a heated needle touching the base of his skull. It had started 2 days ago, a low-level static that never went away. But as they climbed higher into this remote, uninhabited wilderness, the static had turned into a scream. Young Midoriya? All Might's voice was gentle, laced with a terrifying amount of pity. Do you need a painkiller? I have the strong stuff from the stash. No, Izuku gritted out. It won't help. It's not physical pain. You haven't slept in 30 hours, All Might said, his voice hardening slightly. He glanced at the boy. Izuku looked wrecked. Dark circles bruised his eyes. His skin was pallid. We should turn back. We can find a hotel in the valley. Rest for a few days. No! Izuku snapped, his eyes flying open. They were bloodshot. We can't stop. They're coming. Who is coming? All Might asked, gripping the steering wheel. The HPSC? The League? Everyone. Izuku cried out, clutching his head as the van hit a bump. The jolt sent a spike of agony through his nervous system. The fourth, he's terrified. He's screaming at me to run. To hide. All Might sighed, a heavy, rattling sound in his emaciated chest. Haikid Shinomori. The hermit. He lived here, Izuku whispered, trembling. He spent 18 years in these woods, hiding from All for One. He died of old age at 40 because the stress ate him alive. And now I'm feeling it. The van crested a ridge, and the road ended. Ahead lay a dense, primordial forest. The trees were massive, their roots twisting over the ground like petrified snakes. The canopy was so thick it blocked out the gray sky, plunging the world below into a twilight gloom. We're here, All Might said, killing the engine. The silence that followed was heavy. It's loud, Izuku whimpered. It's silent, Izuku. No, Izuku unbuckled his seatbelt, stumbling out of the van into the mud. He looked at the trees. The forest, it's screaming at me, the living nightmare. The setup was simple, according to the vestiges. Shinomori had left a cache in a cave deep within the Aokigahara of Shikoku, a forest so dense and confusing that compasses failed and GPS signals died. But there was a guardian. Not a Nomu. Not a villain, the forest itself. Stay close, All Might said, stepping out. He didn't transform. He was saving his time. He carried a heavy flashlight and a machete. This area is known for spirited away disappearances. The locals say the plants are alive. It's a quirk, Izuku murmured, forcing himself to walk. His legs felt like lead. Danger sense was firing constantly. Left. Right. Above. Below. Someone died here a long time ago, a quirk user with a botanical mutation. Their body decomposed into the soil, and their quirk, it infected the ecosystem. They walked into the tree line. Immediately, the temperature dropped 10 degrees. The smell of wet earth and rotting vegetation was overpowering. Stab! Izuku gasped, dropping to one knee. Izuku! Malice! Izuku choked out. Pure malice. Everywhere. All Might looked around. I don't see anything. That's because you're not listening. Izuku yelled, his control fracturing. The stress of the last few weeks, the constant running, the battles, the weight of the world, was culminating in this sensory torture. Suddenly, a root the thickness of a python whipped out of the ground. It wasn't a slow drift, it was a predatory strike. All Might moved on instinct, his skeletal form surprisingly agile. He slashed with the machete, severing the root. It oozed a purple, sap-like blood. It is alive, All Might hissed. The forest responded to the violence. The canopy rustled, 1,000 leaves shaking in unison like a rattlesnake's tail. Danger! 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 The signal in Izuku's brain wasn't a directional pointer anymore. It was omnidirectional. It was white noise. Make it stop, Izuku whispered, covering his ears. Please make it stop. Vines dropped from the trees like hangman's nooses. Thorny bushes uncoiled, lashing out. Smash! All Might yelled, buffing up for a split second to deliver a shockwave punch that cleared a circle around them. He grabbed Izuku by the collar of his jumpsuit. We are leaving. This is too dangerous for your mental state. I can't leave. Izuku thrashed against his mentor's grip. I have to master it. If I can't handle a headache, how can I handle Shigaraki? This isn't a headache. You are having a breakdown. All Might shouted back, dragging the boy backward. I promised your mother I would keep you alive. Watching you go insane is not keeping you alive. Let me go. Izuku flared one for all. Green lightning sparked, burning All Might's hand. Toshinori recoiled, shock written on his face. Izuku had used his quirk against him. Izuku stood panting, tears streaming down his face mixed with rain. You don't understand. You were the symbol of peace. You stood in the light. I have to live in the dark. Shinomori lived in the dark. I have to understand him. Izuku. It hurts, Izuku sobbed, clutching his head. It hurts so much. The forest seized the moment of distraction. A massive wooden tendril, thick as a telephone pole, swung from the shadows. It slammed into All Might's side. Gah! The hero went flying, crashing into a rotted stump. He lay there, coughing blood. All Might! Izuku screamed. He turned to the tendril. Rage flared. Black Whip exploded from his back, not the controlled tendrils he had used in Naruhata, but wild, thrashing obsidian energy. Get back! Izuku shrieked. He tore at the trees, ripping them up by the roots. He was destroying the forest, but the forest was infinite. For every tree he smashed, 2 more animated to take its place. He was surrounded. The prickly sensation of danger sense was so intense it felt like his skin was on fire. He couldn't tell where the next attack was coming from because it was coming from everywhere. He swung blindly. He missed. A vine wrapped around his ankle. Another around his throat. He was hoisted into the air. The pressure on his windpipe increased. His vision began to spot. Is this it? Izuku thought, panic rising. Am I going to die in the woods, just like the fourth? Duck. The voice didn't come from the vestiges. It came from the air above him. A blur of yellow and white streaked through the canopy like a comet. Crack. A boot, hard as iron, slammed into the vine holding Izuku's neck. The vine shattered. Izuku fell, gasping for air. He looked up. Standing on a tree branch, bouncing slightly on the balls of his feet, was a tiny old man in a white cape and a yellow suit. He looked ancient, but his eyes were sharp enough to cut glass. "You look pathetic," Grand Torino spat. "The hard reset." All Might groaned, pulling himself up from the mud. "Torino." "Shut up, Toshinori," Grand Torino barked, hopping down. He moved so fast he appeared to teleport. He landed in front of All Might and kicked him in the shin. Hard. "Ow, that's for letting the kid get this bad," Torino growled. Then he turned to Izuku. Izuku was on his hands and knees, wheezing. "Gran. Torino? Get up," Torino ordered. Izuku tried. His legs shook. The noise, the danger. Whack. Torino's cane. Where did he even get a cane? Cracked across Izuku's head. "Ow." Izuku clutched his forehead. "Why? Where is the danger now?" Torino asked. Izuku blinked. "What? The danger? Is it the tree? Is it the vine? Or is it the old man standing in front of you?" Izuku focused. The buzzing in his head was still there, a chaotic swarm. But amidst the noise there was a sharp, pulsating spike coming directly from Torino. It's you," Izuku whispered. "Correct," Torino said. "I'm the most dangerous thing in these woods, boy. Because I'm the one who's going to kick your ass if you don't get it together." Torino looked around at the writhing forest. The plants seemed to hesitate, sensing a predator higher on the food chain. "This place is a sensory nightmare," Torino admitted. "It's a feedback loop. You're scared, so you broadcast fear. The quirk in the trees reacts to fear and attacks. Which scares you more? Which makes danger sense scream louder?" He grabbed Izuku's ear and twisted. "You're caught in a loop, idiot! Stop feeling and start thinking." "I can't turn it off," Izuku cried. "You don't turn off a radio," Torino said. "You tune it. Come on. I found a spot where the reception is clear." Torino grabbed All Might by the back of his belt and Izuku by the hood of his suit. "Jets on." With a burst of air pressure from his saws, the old hero launched them all into the air, weaving through the attacking branches with impossible speed, heading toward a rocky outcropping near the summit. The cave of the fourth. The cave was small, dry, and smelled of ancient dust. It was situated on a cliff face where the vegetation couldn't reach. Torino dropped them unceremoniously on the stone floor. He started a small fire with a lighter and some dry moss he had in his pocket. "So," Torino said, sitting on a rock and staring at the two of them. "The runaways. You've been busy. Niigata. Narahata. Leaving a trail of destruction." All Might sat against the wall, clutching his bruised ribs. "We are trying to keep him hidden, Gran." The Commission knows," Torino interrupted. "They aren't stupid. And neither is All for One. You're running out of time." Torino turned his gaze to Izuku. The boy was sitting in the corner, rocking back and forth, hands over his ears. "He's cracking," Torino said bluntly. "Shinomori's quirk. It drove the original user into isolation. He couldn't be around people because he felt their malice, their little angers, their envies. It was torture." Izuku looked up, his eyes hollow. "How do I stop it?" "You don't," Torino said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a strip of cloth. "Stand up." Izuku stood. Torino walked over and tied the cloth around Izuku's eyes. Total darkness. "What are you doing?" "Blocking your other senses," Torino said. "You're relying on your eyes and ears to confirm what the quirk is telling you. That creates a delay. Signal, confirm, react. Too slow. And when the signals don't match, like a tree moving when trees shouldn't move, your brain panics." Torino picked up a handful of small pebbles. "Shinomori was a paranoid hermit," Torino said, his voice echoing in the cave. "But he survived for 18 years against the greatest evil in history. He didn't do that by panicking. He did it by filtering." Zip. A pebble struck Izuku in the forehead. "Ow, why didn't you dodge?" "I didn't see it." "You felt it," Torino corrected. "Before I threw it, I aimed. I had intent." "Did you feel the intent?" Izuku concentrated. The buzzing was still there, the background radiation of the forest below. "But yes. Just before the impact, there had been a tiny spike. A directional ping." I think so." Focus on the spike, Torino said. Ignore the static. The forest is static. I am the spike. He threw another stone. Izuku twitched his head to the left. The stone grazed his ear. Better, Torino grunted. Again. For the next 4 hours, Grand Torino did not let up. He threw stones. He threw sticks. Eventually, he started zooming around the cave, delivering light kicks and slaps. Izuku was bruised, tired, and hungry. But slowly, the panic began to recede. In the darkness of the blindfold, the world changed. It wasn't visual anymore. It was a radar screen. The forest malice was a wash of red noise in the background. Torino was a bright, yellow blip moving fast. Intent. Action. Danger. Izuku began to move before the attacks landed. He ducked a kick. He sidestepped a stone. Inside the vestige world, the mist cleared. Izuku found himself standing in a small, tatami-matted room. Sitting in the center was Haikid Shinomori. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in a decade. His face was lined with stress cracks like porcelain. It's too much, isn't it? Shinomori whispered. The world is so angry. It is, Izuku replied in the vision. He sat down opposite the fourth user. But I can't hide from it. You hid to save the power. I have to use the power to save the world. Shinomori looked up. His eyes were sad but hopeful. I was alone. You are not. You have the crazy old man. And the loud blonde one. I do. Then filter it, Shinomori said. Don't let the malice in. Just read it. Like a weather report. Izuku opened his eyes, or rather, he woke up from the trance. He was still blindfolded in the cave. Torino was midair, aiming a heel drop at Izuku's shoulder. Izuku didn't panic. He didn't flinch. He slid to the right, smooth and calm. Torino hit the floor. I see you, Izuku whispered. Torino grinned, revealing his missing teeth. Finally, the gauntlet of thorns. The next morning, the rain had stopped, but the fog remained. They stood at the mouth of the cave looking down into the crater-like valley where the forest was thickest. The core is down there, Torino said, pointing with his cane. The original body of the plant user. It's generating the signal that controls the vegetation. It's practically a brain-dead singularity, lashing out in a dream. We need to neutralize it, All Might said, standing up straighter. He looked better after a night of rest, though still frail. I can clear a path with a smash. No, Torino stopped him. The boy goes. Alone? All Might protested. Alone, Torino confirmed. And blindfolded. Izuku tied the cloth around his eyes tight. He checked his gear. His gloves were secured. His boots were laced. Why blindfolded? Izuku asked calmly. Because if you open your eyes, you'll hesitate, Torino said. The forest creates illusions. Shapes of people you know. Monsters. It feeds on your memory. Trust only the sensation. Trust the danger sense, Izuku repeated. Go, Torino ordered. Sedate the core. Put the forest to sleep. Izuku stepped off the ledge. He fell into the canopy. The moment he entered the green zone, the screaming returned. Kill. Eat. Crush. But this time, Izuku didn't scream back. He took a deep breath. Filter, he told himself. Background noise. He visualized a radio dial. He turned the volume down on the static. A vine lashed out from the right. Spike. Izuku tilted his head. The vine missed by an inch. He landed on a thick branch. Danger below. He jumped immediately. A set of wooden jaws snapped shut where he had been standing. He began to run. To an observer, it would have looked suicidal. Izuku was sprinting through a dense, thorny nightmare with a blindfold on. He was jumping over roots he couldn't see, ducking under branches that appeared out of nowhere. He wasn't moving like All Might. He wasn't moving like the crawler. He was moving like water. Danger left. Dodge. Danger right. Weave. Danger ahead. Slide. He activated Black Whip. But he didn't use it to attack. He used it as sensory feelers. The tendrils lashed out, touching the trees, feeding tactile information back to him to supplement the danger sense. The fourth user is with me, Izuku thought. He's guiding me. The deeper he went, the intense the malice became. It was sorrowful. It was a child's tantrum magnified by a quirk that could crush mountains. There, in the center of the valley, the signals converged. A massive, pulsating knot of wood and vines. A heart. Izuku stopped. He stood in a clearing of thorns. The core sensed him. It didn't attack immediately. It gathered its strength. The air pressure dropped. Massive danger. The warning was so loud it nearly knocked Izuku over. The core was about to unleash a omnidirectional spike burst. A million thorns exploding outward at supersonic speed. Izuku didn't run away. He ran forward. Gear shift. No, not yet. Too much strain. F.A. Gene? Yes. He began to stutter step. 1, 2, 3. The thorns exploded. Izuku sensed every single one of them. It was a rain of death. He danced. He twisted his body in midair, Black Whip pulling him through the gaps in the barrage. A thorn grazed his cheek. Another tore his suit leg. But no vital hits. He was in the eye of the storm. I'm sorry you're hurting, Izuku yelled at the core. He couldn't see it, but he could feel its sadness. I'm sorry you were left here alone. He reached the central knot. He could feel the heat of the body inside, a skeleton fused with the wood, kept alive only by the quirk. Izuku pulled back his fist. He didn't use 100%. He didn't want to kill it. He focused. Precision smash. Sleep, Izuku whispered. He punched the center of the knot. He channeled the shockwave through the wood, directly into the nervous system of the plant creature. Texas smash, anesthetic. The impact was dull. A thud. The forest froze. The vines that were mid-strike went limp. The thorns stopped vibrating. The screaming in Izuku's head cut out instantly. Silence. Beautiful, empty silence. Izuku stood there, panting, his blindfold damp with sweat and rain. He slowly reached up and untied the knot. The cloth fell away. He opened his eyes. The forest was just a forest. The sun was beginning to break through the clouds, dappling the mossy ground with light. The core in front of him had stopped pulsating. It looked like just an old, gnarled tree stump. Izuku placed a hand on the bark. Rest in peace. From the shadows of the trees, two figures approached. Gran Torino was smiling, a rare, terrifying sight. All Might looked like he was about to cry with relief. You did it, All Might breathed. I tuned it out, Izuku said, looking at his hands. It's not a curse. It's a compass. The campfire reconciliation. That night, they camped in the now peaceful woods. The air was fresh. Gran Torino roasted a fish over the fire. He looked at Izuku, who was bandaging the cuts on his arms. You're getting stronger, kid, Torino said. But you're getting harder too. You didn't hesitate to strike the core. I can't afford to hesitate, Izuku said quietly. Don't lose the heart, Torino warned, pointing a fish bone at him. Tashinori here was a great hero because he smiled. You aren't smiling much lately. Izuku touched his face. It felt stiff. When was the last time he smiled for real? Not a reassuring smile for civilians, but a happy one? I'll smile when we win, Izuku said. All Might looked at Torino. They shared a look of concern. The boy was growing up, but he was growing up too fast. The crucible of the path was burning away the softness of Deku. So, Torino said, tossing the bone into the fire. What now? The fifth user, Izuku said. Daigoro Banjo. Black Whip? I can use it, but it's sloppy. I need to refine it. Banjo, Torino snorted. I knew him. Briefly. Loud guy. Bald. Liked leather jackets. We're heading to the ruins of the Gigantomachia incident, All Might said. Where Banjo died. You're going to need more than Black Whip, Torino said ominously. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, encrypted drive. What is this? All Might asked. Intel, Torino said. From the underground. The HPSC has hired a bounty hunter. A specialist. Lady Nagant, Izuku guessed. The name had appeared in the danger sense visions, a sniper rifle aimed at his heart. She's tracking you, Torino said. She's good. Better than you, Tashinori, in your current state. And she has range on the kid. Why is she hunting us? Because she made a deal, Torino said grimly. Freedom in exchange for the boy. She's desperate. And a desperate pro is more dangerous than a villain. Torino stood up. I'm not coming with you, Gran? Izuku looked up. I'm too old for a road trip, and frankly, you smell like wet dog, Torino joked. I'm going back to the grid. I'll run interference. I'll lead the HPSC on a wild goose chase to the south while you go east. He walked over to Izuku. He didn't hit him this time. He placed a hand on the boy's head. You're not All Might, kid. You're not Nana. You're something else. Something new. Torino looked into Izuku's green eyes. Don't die. That's an order. Yes, sir, Izuku said. Torino vanished into the trees with a burst of jet air, leaving the two of them alone by the fire. The weight of the crown. Later, while All Might slept in the van, Izuku sat on the roof, looking at the stars. The headache was gone. Danger Sense was a low hum now, a comforting background monitor. He opened his notebook to volume 14. Trial 4 complete. Lesson: Sensory Filtration / Mental Fortitude. Mentor: Gran Torino / the fourth user. Status: Danger Sense active. Mental state: stable? He looked at the word stable. He crossed it out. Status: focused. He felt a vibration in the vestige world. The fourth user, Hikage, was sitting in his chair, finally relaxed. He nodded to Izuku, but behind him, the fifth user, Banjo, was standing up. He was cracking his knuckles. The black whip energy was coiling around his arms. Get ready, kid, Banjo's voice echoed in Izuku's mind. The next one is gonna be messy. Izuku closed the notebook. He looked at his hand. He clenched it into a fist. The green lightning crackled, but it was darker now, tinged with the black of the whip and the red of the sense. Let them come, Izuku whispered to the night. I'm ready. Far away, on a rooftop in Osaka, Lady Nagant racked the bolt of her rifle. She smiled. I see you, little rabbit. The path of legends continued. And the hunter was closing in.